You know, when you have not yet sufficiently relaxed physically, the body's in a state of dis-ease. When you haven't practiced relaxing physically enough yet, the energy in the body called the chi, the vital force, cannot flow freely through the body. There's blockages. If you're into chakras, there's blockages that keep the energy from moving freely up the spine to the brain. And these blockages in the body cause problems because the energy can't move, and then if the energy can't move, the energy starts to turn in on itself. That's called cancer. So these things are very important in terms of experiencing well-being, physically, mentally, emotionally, being successful in interacting with the world and with other people. And balance is a really important part of these understandings because our nervous system is out of balance. We have the autonomic nervous system, and there's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. The parasympathetic is the relaxed state when the body is in homeostasis, when the body is not being affected in ways that don't allow it to work the way it is designed to work. The sympathetic nervous system is the fight-flight nervous system. It's the part of the nervous system where there's a part of the brain that is filtering everything that's coming in from the appearance of the outside world and constantly monitoring whether there's anything there that's a threat. And unfortunately for most of us, given our conditioning, threats are occurring pretty often, right? Threats to the physical body, not so much. Threats to the personality, about every few minutes or more, right? Why? Because you're constantly preoccupied with yourself. The idea that you consider yourself to be a personality, which means that you have identified yourself with a program running in the mind, and you believe that I think, therefore I am. You believe that the thought process is your life. You believe that the thought process is your life. And so what goes on there determines whether you feel good or bad. What goes on there determines whether you feel threatened or not. What goes on there determines whether you're satisfied, whether you're happy, whether you're content, whether you're peaceful. And for most of us, this does not generate that experience. This does not generate well-being. This cannot generate well-being because it's a program running in your mind. It's a thought process. It's not alive. Well-being can only be experienced by an alive being, a real being, an authentic being. The personality is not alive. It's a thought process that's occurring in thought. If I ask you who you are, you tell me what you think. You have no alternative. So what this is all about is coming to a direct discovery of the truth, coming to a direct discovery that I am not who I thought I was. And what I am is an experience, not a thought. What I am is a state of being, not a thought. And when I begin to entertain that possibility, I start to move toward the possibility of being awake and alive. The awareness that is our true nature is alive. It is real, right? And it is always there. And if you were experiencing yourself to be that awareness, you would experience well-being. Why? Because that experience of awareness itself is the experience of that which has no form. It's the experience of that which only exists in the present moment. So that's your entire life, the present moment. It's the experience of that which doesn't have a beginning or an end. It's an experience of that which has no age, has no gender. It's like space. But it's real and it's alive, it's vibrant, it's happening. And when you experience yourself as this awareness, you're experiencing satisfaction, well-being, you're experiencing contentment and peace of mind, because nothing is happening. It's an interesting statement, nothing is happening, right? You can either hear that like the absence of anything is happening, right? Or what you are, which is nothing, is happening. You get it? Like that. So when we talk about this possible experience of well-being, we're talking about an experience that, if you examine it, it's an experience in which there is always a state of balance. It's a state of balance. So one of the Zen masters said that we're practicing being in balance. We're practicing in meditation. We're practicing sitting there and allowing the body to relax and the mind to calm down until they come into a state of balance. Right? So that the sympathetic and asympathetic nervous system comes into a state of balance. And when that happens, there's an equation. When that happens, that state of balance between the body and the mind, when they come into a state of balance, zero appears. When they're out of balance, it's plus this or negative that, right? It's out of balance, right? When they're in balance, zero appears, right? Nothing appears. And that zero or that nothing is actually you. That is the awareness. It's like space. It's empty. It's zero, right? And when you're experiencing zero, right, then you rise above the dichotomy or the duality of the body and the mind, and you're able to be aware of both the body and the mind. And when you're able to be aware of both the body and the mind, you can then detect when it's out of balance. Right? So in meditation, the first thing we're doing is practicing relaxing the physical body and calming the mind until we experience this state of balance. And when we experience this state of balance, we've actually made contact with the reality of what we are. We've made direct contact with the reality of what we are. Right? There's a felt sense of that. It feels like something to be you, you know? It feels like something to be what you actually are. It feels calm. It feels fulfilled. It feels happy, content, peaceful, and relaxed. So this is when we're practicing meditation. In the beginning, that's not the way it is. In the beginning, we're still in the agitation of the mental state. We're still in the instability of emotions. We're still in the constantly changing state of the physical body. We're still relating to a world that's constantly changing all the time. Right? But if you stick with it, eventually, gradually, what happens is you begin to experience this balanced state and you begin to experience your true nature. And once that happens, you can begin to pay attention to the state that the body is in and the mind is in, so that you're aware when it's out of balance. Okay? So then when that happens, you can take the practice off the cushion or off the chair and start to practice what's called sadhana. I don't think I've used that term here before, have I? Sadhana? It's a term from the East that means spiritual practice, but it doesn't just mean meditation. It means spiritual practice, that you're practicing all the time. It is your sadhana. It is your spiritual practice. And what sadhana means is, now that you've experienced this balanced state in meditation practice, now you're going to take this felt sense of being in balance and you're going to take it into the traffic of your life. You're going to take it into the world in which you're being challenged all the time with the news, with the traffic, with the other human beings, the other 8 billion human beings, right? And deal with the game of life that everybody's playing, the game of life. You know, trying to get enough possessions to be happy, pursuing happiness, trying to be secure, trying to get sleep at night, trying to enjoy yourself. And it's a 24/7 job. That's a damn crime. It's a shame, isn't it, that most people's lives are a job? That's not a life, it's a job. No wonder people die young and wear out, right? Because you're working. All the time you're working. There's no time to rest your head, no place to rest your head. So in this practice of balance, one way that I came up with to conceive of it that can give you access to it, right, is think of it as a bandwidth, right? We're all familiar with bandwidths now because of the internet, right? So what is a bandwidth? A bandwidth is a band within which something is occurring, right? And you could say that this bandwidth could represent a state of balance, a state of well-being. And when you're in this bandwidth, it means that your body is in a relaxed state, right? It means your blood pressure isn't up. It means your heartbeat isn't up. You're in a relaxed state. You're calm when you're in this state. And when you go out of this state on the upper end of it, right, agitation, excitation, anger, struggle, coping, right? When you go down below this state, depression, futility, right? A loss of interest, a loss of motivation. You know, you just want to sleep all the time, right? So through meditation, you can have a felt sense of this experience of balance, and then if you take that into your life, you can start to pay attention consistently to see when you're outside the band. And when you're outside the band, right, you can begin to practice how to get back into the band, how to get back into the band, how you get back into the bandwidth. One of the things I recommend is that in addition to the meditation practice, you begin to do breath work, right? You do breath work. Why? Because the normal way that people breathe is unhealthy. The normal way that people breathe, they're holding their breath more than they're breathing their breath. And so the body suffers from that. You know, I've been studying blood pressure recently, and it's interesting because you could take your blood pressure, and then after you take your blood pressure, you could do deep breathing for 5 minutes and take it again, right? And it'll have dropped dramatically. I was playing with this one day, and I actually couldn't believe it, right? I was playing with this one day, and I took my blood pressure, and then I started doing the deep breathing practice, and then I took my blood pressure again, it dropped 50 points. Now you have to get good at the breath work, right, to be able to do something like that, right? But you can do that through practice. You can begin practicing doing the breath work and then using the breath work as a way to bring yourself into the bandwidth. So if you're going through the day and you are paying attention, that's the first thing that you have to practice is paying attention, right? So if you're paying attention consistently so you can see when you're out of the bandwidth, right? And then all you have to do is start paying attention to your breath. You can be driving your car, you can be talking to people, you can be doing anything, right? But start paying attention to your breath and deepen your breath. Fill your whole cavity with the breath and then let it release completely. And just do that for about 5 minutes and it'll bring you back into the bandwidth, right? And so if you practice being in the bandwidth, you're practicing well-being, because when you're in the bandwidth, you're experiencing a state of well-being. You're experiencing being relaxed. You're experiencing having a calm state of mind, right? But this is not something that's going to happen overnight, right? You've been practicing being crazy for years. You've been practicing not taking care of your body for years. You've been practicing being in a form of a personality. And when you're in the form of a personality, you're unable to act in your own best interest. If you don't believe me, look around, you know, look around. If we were all able to act in our own best interest, we wouldn't have a crisis in obesity in this country, right? If we're able to act in our own best interest, we wouldn't have suicide going through the roof. We wouldn't have people walking around in a crazy state of mind that they're dangerous, right? So don't go by the herd. Don't look at what normal looks like. Normal is crazy. You know, everybody is in a mental state, right? Humanity, generally speaking, is in a mental state that's crazy. But they call it normal, right? They call it normal to smoke a lot of pot and drink a lot of alcohol and watch sports and watch TV and watch movies and just distract yourself day and night. That's normal, right? Everybody knows that's normal, right? All you have to do is watch TV and you'll find out that that's normal. They'll tell you, have a beer, be normal, right? That's not normal. Humanity's in a sick state. It's in a state of, it's not in a state of well-being. So don't fly with that flock. Don't run with that herd. Allow yourself to understand that you can take responsibility for being happy. You can take responsibility for being calm and relaxed and be able to enjoy the experience of your life before it's too late, because this is a very temporary situation we're having here, right? You know, and if you ignore it, if you don't pay attention to it, that's called ignorance. If you ignore it, then it's going to go by and you won't even notice it, and then before you know it, it's almost over and you weren't even here. That's the biggest tragedy. The biggest tragedy for most humanity is on their deathbed, they get to experience having missed it. just about to leave, and I finally realized, Oh, this was about enjoying being here, not having money. Where did I go? Where did I get to? Well, it's too late now. Everything in moderation is in balance. A guitar string that's strung too tight can't play music. If it's too loose, it can't play music. If it's right in a balanced state, right, then it can play music, right? Same thing with your life, same thing with your energy. This balance is not just a balance between the mind and the body, it is, but it's a balance between everything. It's a balance between the outside world and the inside world. Most people don't know there's an inside world. They think it's just me, my body, and the world, right? But there's a whole reality going on in the mind all the time, you know, thought, thinking, planning, remembering, envisioning, and the emotional life, you know, up and down, all over the place. This is all over the place, right? If you get to experience the stability and the consistency of the experience of the awareness that is your true nature, then all this movement is a show instead of something that's driving you mad. It's a whole different experience. You know, there's no end to this experience of widening your understanding or widening your awareness of what is so and seeing it clearly and understanding the importance and the value of it, right? So that you take it as something that can guide you to experience what you want more than anything else, which is to be happy, satisfied, and at peace. That's what's available. But as the process continues, you begin to understand this is not magic. No. If you're going to come into balance and you begin to experience more of a balanced mind, right, then you become aware of what's out of balance in your body. What does that mean? What you're putting in your mouth, how much exercise you're getting, how much sleep you're getting, what's the quality of that sleep, right? You know, these are all the factors that are affecting your physical body. And your physical body can't come into a state of balance unless you deal with what's out of balance in relationship to the physical body. That becomes natural and easy as you awaken, right? Because it becomes evident to you that if you want to experience the possibility of being in balance, right, then you pay attention to what's out of balance, right, and you start to get it to be in balance. You start to pay attention to what you're eating. You start to eat a balanced diet. You pay attention to your activity. You start to exercise. You know, you start to pay attention to the you know, the information. You know, we're really blessed in the sense that we have devices now that can monitor our bodies, monitor your nervous system. You can wear a watch in the morning, you can wake up and see how many minutes you were in deep sleep, how many minutes you were in REM sleep, how many minutes you were in light sleep, how many minutes you weren't sleeping, right? And you can wear a device that can score that based on a lot of different aspects of your physical reality. You can monitor your blood pressure. You can wear a watch that monitors your blood pressure and your pulse, right? And your oxygen use. You know, we have all these devices that can give us direct feedback about the condition our body is in, right? And if we use all that, and if we practice being in balance, if we practice living in harmony with the physicality of our body, that our body becomes in a state of health and well-being, and then if you have a calm state of mind, right, what happens? You naturally begin to experience your true nature. Because there's nothing interfering with it now. The thought activity is not interfering with it anymore because you see it for what it is. You realize the thoughts appear in your mind are coming from your conditioning, coming from the database of everything that's ever happened to you, right? And you're not doing that. You're not thinking thoughts. Thoughts are happening. If you don't believe me, right, just stop thinking. If you don't believe me, when you stop using your thought activity to do a practical thing, which is no problem, you know, we use thinking to drive our car and do practical. But notice when you're done using it to do that it doesn't stop. It goes into what the neuroscientists call the default state, right? What's that mean? It starts thinking about you. It goes into an ego state, starts thinking about me. Oh, how do I feel? What do I want? What happened yesterday? What's going to happen tomorrow? Who's after me? Who's going to hurt me, right? It goes into this preoccupation with you. Because when you're in the default state, you are the most important thing in the universe. That just gives you an idea how crazy you are. Because in reality, that's not true. That's why in Buddhism they have one of the teachings is called the 8 verses for training the mind, right? And if you read those 8 verses, it really points out that you are not the most important thing in the universe. You are the least important thing in the universe. Why? Because you're the least important thing in the universe, because if you think that the personality is real and you are that personality, right? Then you're not even in the game. You're not even in the game. So I want to make sure today, one of the things I had on my agenda today is I wanted to acknowledge you guys, the ones of you who have been coming to the class on a regular basis, especially if you've been practicing this on your own, right? Because then you've been training yourself to be awake. You've been training yourself to be alive. You've been training yourself to experience reality. And that's not an easy process to go through, right? You have to deal with all the insults. You have to deal with all the frustration. You have to deal with all the points of failure, right? But these points of failure start to lessen and lessen as you continue to walk the path. Until you're on the other side, until you're in a state of balance, right, where you're experiencing your true nature in a consistent way, so that all that's changing and unstable is no longer driving you crazy. You can just relax and enjoy the show. It's as simple as that. So I want you to know that it's not easy for you. You know, I've been there too. I've been through it, right? But it's worth it. It's really worth it, right? Because what's the alternative? You know, there's only 2 possibilities. You either wake up or die sleeping. That's it. There's only 2 possibilities. Everybody on the planet is in this process. Everybody, all humanity is in this process. Most of them are on the side of it yet where they still haven't yet discovered that their personality isn't real and that it's going to cause them suffering for the rest of their life. Most of them are still on that side of the process. But it is still the process. There's nowhere else to go. You know, you either wake up or you stay in the state that you condition you're in and continue to suffer until you can't take that anymore, and then you'll wake up. It's designed to be that way. Suffering has a purpose. The purpose of suffering is to wake you up.